I have thought about starting over so many times, yeah. Not in some crazy or dramatic way. Not running away or blowing up my life, no. Just starting over. In small ways, in big ways, in ways that really matter. And every time I think about it, I get like scared. I freeze. I overthink it. Like paralyzed scared. Like maybe I should just stay where I am scared. And I keep asking myself, why am I so afraid of starting over? I've done hard things before. I've survived things I didn't think I could survive. I've rebuilt myself more times than I can actually count. So why does the idea of starting over feel so terrifying to me? Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you've been thinking about it too. Starting over in your career, or starting over in your marriage, or starting over with your health, or starting over with your life. And maybe every time you think about it, you hear that voice in your head saying, you're too old for this. You already tried once and it didn't work. Like, oh my God, what if you fail again? What will people think? Or this is like the third time you're attempting this. What's different this time? And so you stay. Not because you want to, but because staying feels safer than starting over. Sis, I know this fear. I feel this fear and I still feel this way. And here's what I've learned. Starting over doesn't mean you fail the first time. It means you're brave enough to try again. Let me say that again. I know it's hard. Starting over doesn't mean you'd fail the first time. It means you outgrow the first version. Because here's what nobody tells you about life. You're going to outgrow things. No one ever told us that. You're going to outgrow jobs that once excited you. Relationships that once felt right. Versions of yourself that once worked. And when you outgrow something, you have two choices. You stay and shrink, or you start over and grow. And I know starting over feels like admitting defeat. Like you're going backwards instead of forwards. Like you wasted time. But sis, you didn't waste time. You learned. You learned what you don't want. You learned what you can't tolerate. You learned who you really are. And now you get to take care of all that. And build something that is better, not from scratch, but from wisdom. Because starting over at 45 or 55 is not the same as starting over at 25. At 25, you were guessing. At 45, you know. You know what matters. You know what doesn't matter. You know who you are. You know what you're worth. And that is not starting from zero. That's starting from clarity. So if you're afraid of starting over, if you're wondering if it's too late, if you're scared people will judge you, let me tell you something. The people who judge you for starting over are the people who are too afraid to start over themselves. They're stuck. And they need you to stay stuck too. Because your freedom reminds them of their fear. But you don't owe them your stuckness. You don't owe them your smallness. You don't owe them a life you've outgrown just so they can feel comfortable. You owe yourself the chance to start again, even if it's scary. Even if it's hard. Even if people don't understand, because a lot of people won't. Because here's what I know. Staying in something you've outgrown doesn't make you loyal. It makes you tired. Starting over doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you honest. And yes, sis, starting over is terrifying. Because you don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if you're going to succeed. But you know what's more terrifying? Staying somewhere you don't belong for the rest of your life. Playing it safe until you forget what it feels like to want something. Staying small until you forget you were never, ever meant for more. That is scarier than starting over. So if you've been thinking about it, if you've been scared to take the next step or the first step, if you've been waiting for permission, hear this. You're allowed to start over at 40, at 50, at 60, at any age. You're allowed to want something different. You're allowed to rebuild. You're allowed to try again. And it's not too late. No, it's never too late. As long as you're breathing, you can begin again. So stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for everyone to understand. Stop waiting to feel ready. You will never ever feel ready. But you always regret not starting. If you've been afraid to start over, type "I'm starting" in the comment section below. Not because you have it all figured out. No, but because you're done staying stuck. This is Sisterhood with Dr. Mo, where starting over isn't failure. It's freedom. Subscribe. We're just getting started. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay healthy.